Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and do you want to improve the sound quality of your speaker system in your car? It's easy to do, and I'm going to show you how. All right, y'all, so let's jump in and talk about this a little bit before we get into it. Now, don't forget, everything you need will be linked in the video description below. But this is a revamp, a rebuild of my stage 1, 2, and 3 Soundskins series. Now, this is car agnostic. You really can approach this technique for any car. We're going to be using a stock BMW X1 today. It's going to be a really great platform for this. It has a decent amount of road noise. So I'm really looking forward to this project and the difference it's going to make. Make sure to check out my results video as well, where you really see the dramatic difference that all of this install can make in your car. But I really view this as a stage 1, 2, and 3 with some different goals as we go through it. And this is the first part of my 3-part series. Also, Soundskins has released some new products, so I'm revamping my stages. I'm setting them up a little bit differently to be even more effective than what they were before. Now, keep in mind you have 2 basic goals in installing products like this. One, cutting overall road noise. That's the sound of the road, the sound of your tires, other cars and the like, which is just easier on you as a driver. And then also giving a cleaner sound stage for your sound system. So even if you have a stock sound system, this will help improve that and give you better quality sound. So our stage 1 today, we're going to be working on the door cards and the doors, really looking at a good intro step to reduce road noise a little bit. It's going to improve your sound system a little bit, and it's really going to be a good, easy step forward. Now, I'm going to show you how you walk through that. We're going to be working on all 4 doors today. I'll show you in this car, one front door and one back door, because the other side is going to be exactly the same here in this stage 1. But again, the instructions today are going to be how to take the door cards off an X1 and this car specific, but you can do these same steps for any car. So if you have a car or a truck or whatever brand it has to be, this video will still work for you because you can look at the techniques of what we're doing on how to cut out the material, how to apply the material, how to put your door cards back on. It's really going to work even if you don't have a BMW X1. But I'm really excited to do it. This car has a lot of road noise. This is going to be a really great series for this car. All right, so let's get started and jump in. All right, so here's where we're going to get into the specifics of a BMW in this case, but when we talk about your door card or door panel, this is what we're talking about. Your speakers can be behind it, in it, the whole 9 yards, and you have a whole lot of cables on the back side of this. So as we go through all of this, I'm going to show you specifically how to tear the door panel off an X1, and every car is going to be different, but this is the general process. You're going to have some screws holding it down, and then you're going to have plastic clips all around the outside. So in this case, the next one, we want to get the door grip off first. Always use a plastic trim tool or similar. If your door card has never been off before, it's going to be really, really tight. So I've got my plastic trim tool up here underneath the grip, and I start to pop this grip cover, and it's held down by a series of clips. As you can feel, those clips start to let go. And this can be really tight, and chances are this has probably never been off since the factory, right? There we go. Okay, so that's off, and you've got all these little metal clips that hang onto it. So now you've got 3 screws, one right here in the base, one right here, and then one down here underneath that you can feel for. There's a little gap here underneath. There's one right here, and there's one right here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 3 in the back, which we'll cover in a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. They should be T20s. Go ahead and take all 4 of those out, and then I'm going to show you how you get the door card itself off. All right, so one thing you're going to want to do once you have those 4 screws out, and this is a little bit different for the X1. Most of the time, your window switches, you will pull your door card, you'll reach from behind and unplug everything. BMW in this case recommends that you actually pull up the door switches and unplug them first, and it's probably due to the way the wiring routes on the back side. So again, you're going to use a plastic trim tool, get under this back edge, and very gently lift, and it'll lift up and come away. Now, as you turn this, you'll see that there's one of these little typical BMW horse collar plugs where you depress the little tab, rock the collar back, and then your switches will come out and you'll be pulled away like that. So when you pull the door card off, this is a little bit harder to show. It's a little bit harder to show when the door card actually physically comes off because you got to lift it up over your door pin. It has all of your pins all the way around and all your cables around the back. I really want to caution to be careful because it's hard to show because you need about 6 hands. You got to hold the door card and the camera would have to be at a very hard angle looking down back behind, which is hard to see. So once we pop all of these rivets, which I'm going to show you in just a second, and we pull the door card away. Be very gentle when you do it. You'll have your Bowden cable, which is your cable that comes up for your door pull right here. We're gonna pull that loose. Your fiber optics, all of this has different style connections. Some models of BMW, the connection was right here at the back and it was very, very fragile, so you had to be very careful when you unplug it. They've learned since then, and most of the modern cars have their wiring harness set up a little bit differently. But this is the stage where you want to be very careful as you do this so you don't make any mistakes. Okay, so once you have the switch out, let me rearrange my camera a little bit and I'll show you how to start to pop all of these pins that go all the way around the outside. All right, so if your door panel or door card has never been off before, this can be an interesting process because it should be really tight. But it has all of these plastic pins, these like rivets that go all the way around the perimeter, and usually a metal strip of clips are here across the top. So you're gonna wanna take a small plastic trim tool, find a lower section, and work the tool in because it's gonna pop just like that. Now, if you haven't done this before, it can be a little disconcerting, right? Because it sounds like you're breaking things. If you're careful, you aren't. So what I normally will do, especially in a really stiff door card, is I'll get a small plastic trim tool in, I'll work it in, and then I'll slide in a bigger tool to give me a little bit more leverage. And then I can work the smaller one down the panel. Because what we want to do, there we go, is slowly work our way around the perimeter to get this to start to pop loose. As you can see, it's starting to go. There we go. So now, once you've got enough space that you can get your fingers in, because I really like being able to have control where I can feel and pull gently as we go around, just like that. And I always pull evenly. So I really want to stress this as I work my hands around. You can see how the door card kind of hinges in the middle. So if you just really yanked on the bottom, you could fold your door card. That would be bad. Work my hands around evenly, work my way around, pop, 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 pop. You can feel, and now it's loose except for all the way up here at the top. So this is where you're gonna wanna take it and work it free, these clips here up at the top, okay? So let me get this top edge free and I'm gonna show you what that looks like. And as I said before, when you pull this away, only pull it away just a little, just a couple of inches, and check all of your wired connections down the back and start to unplug them. I'll show you what that looks like when it's off. Now keep in mind, every car is going to be different. Every model of BMW is different. But as you can see, I've got it separated away from these clips here on the top. Here's the Bowden cable that controls your door card. You pull it out of that hook, you pull it up and gently pull the back corner, and it'll pull up and away from this clip. This is what controls your door handle, right? Now, the other alternative that you can always do if you want is you can pull it off the door side as well. It really depends on which side is easier for you. I usually will pull at the door lock right there. And I'll show you how to plug this back in when we're done. Okay, so then, and now in this case, this has one primary wiring harness that comes down, you can see right here, plugs in multiple places. We've got all of our different cabling that comes through here. We've got our door. This would be our door switches. We've got our primary harness down here with a little plug where you're gonna squeeze and then the plug will come out. We'll work this off just like that, okay? So just basically work your way down. And this has a little plastic pin on it that's holding it right here to the door. So you're just gonna wanna work all of these free. Be very careful as you do it. And get this wiring harness free, and then we will have this door card off and set it off to the side. All right, y'all, so here we are with the door card off. Now, this is a good example of some of the things that BMW is doing lately. Yeah, as you can see, it actually has this little bit of quilted padding in here, which is BMW's attempt to try to cut down road noise a little bit as well. Most BMWs, until you get in some of the very latest models, do not have this, and it's just the bare door card. So the bare plastic and bare everything else. Now, even if your car has this and it's stapled down, we're gonna take this out because number one, it's not complete. You can see it misses quite a bit of the card. And number two, this is just this kind of, it's almost like cottony material. It's not bad, but it's not great. The new Wavy foam from Soundskins is much, much better. So if you don't have this liner, you can skip forward a little bit. But if you do have this, we're gonna have to take it off. But this is also gonna give us a little bit of an advantage because we're gonna use this as a little bit of a template for the new Wavy foam, okay? So if you have this, go ahead and take it off. There's little staples, so go ahead and use a staple removal tool or a small flat bladed screwdriver, pull all the staples, pull this off, and we're gonna set it aside. And we're gonna use this as a template to cut the new foam. So if you do have this inner lining, this makes it a lot easier to basically create a template that fills the space. But keep in mind, you actually want to go a little bit bigger than what this is. So cut out a big full piece, and we're not going to trace it exactly. We're going to leave extra around the outsides because when we fit this into place, we're going to customize a little bit on the door card itself. We're going to customize its fit so it extends out a little bit further. Now that said, some of these inner dimensions we can absolutely use as a template. So I just got a pencil, which is really nice, and I'm going to mark where my cutouts are going to be. And this is where all of our cables go. This is where our speakers go here in the center. So we are going to cut that space out to make sure that that fits. So this is really a nice advantage if you do have this liner and you are replacing it. Now when we lay this into place, what I will do is I will show laying this big sheet into place on the door card as if we were doing it without this, because you may or may not have this inner lining. Okay, this flap right here is going to be really nice. This is how we got to that upper connection. We have our post holes right here that come through. So we can match all this up really, really nicely. Just leave where our marks are and make sure that we can duplicate really, really nicely as we go through this. But what we want to do is we want to be better than the OEM, right? So when you take a look at this and pull it off, you can see where all of our marks are, where we're going to cut this out. Then you can use a shop knife, just cut out all of these extra spots, and then I'll show you what it looks like to lay this into the door and customize it so it seals off better. Okay, so here's the existing pad put back in here just for a second so you can see it for reference. Here's the new one, which doesn't look too pretty right at the moment, right? But it has all of our same holes and templates all cut out into it, and you can see where it's going to lay in the same place. Fits down over our posts, fits our access ports to get to all of our cabling. But one of the things you want to make sure that you can get to in all of this is you don't want to cover any of your posts, but what we want to do is exceed the coverage. You can see how there's a big gap right here in this existing coverage. There's a big gap right here in all of the existing coverage as we go around. This is going to give us the ability to fold down in deeper with the adhesive on back of this covering. We can fold down all the way in deeper. So you can see I've got overlay on this side where I've gone too far, but that's okay, because all of these pieces, as you can see as it starts to fit through our posts, are going to fit down into this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to trim on the outside. So I'll take this and flip this over. Once it's all lined up, and I know that it's lined up properly, you can see the excess here around the edges. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to take my pencil, I'm going to mark here on the outside edges, trim off my excess, and then I'm going to slowly trim inwards until it fits directly into this door card just perfectly and fills in all of these additional spaces. Now, this being the stage one, we're going to be using the new Wavy foam in replacement to this. We're also going to be using the sound rings that go around the speakers, but we're going to do that last over on the door itself. Okay, so start to trim this piece down, and I'll show you what it looks like here in just a second. All right, so as you can tell, the piece is pretty much fit into place, and there's just lots of little tricks that I can share with you as we go through this from doing this a couple of times. Like I said, we used the other piece as a template to get some of our holes, right? Because this is where our Bowden cable is going to go. That's where it connects. That's where our speaker's going to go. Our other plugs, our plugs for our door switches, right? So you can use that really nicely. If you don't have that, you can still lay a big piece in just like we've done and start to cut out all the various different pieces. So a couple of things. You don't want the foam to go up and over past the edge of your door card because that will make some gap as it fits in there. You want your door card to fit flush. You also want to make sure that it's not impeding any of your posts at all. Don't cover up any connections like your hook for your Bowden cable or the rest as you go around. But then the other thing to keep in mind is that you want to leave as much material as possible, because when you lay this down, as you can see, it's going to stick down. This has an adhesive. I actually could have left a little bit of material there. I have a little bit of extra gap. Now, in the big scheme of things, it's not going to make a big difference, but I cut that edge back just a little bit too aggressively. But all of this stuff is going to lay down very nicely into place as you work this way around. Here's one of my little scrap pieces. You work it around the post just like that right there. And again, I probably could have left a little bit more material as I get a little bit of gap. But all in all, the fitment's pretty good as we look at it. So now, I'm always really careful when I peel the backing off. This adhesive is very good. So initially it'll stick down kind of medium strength, and then once it adheres on, it is down really strongly. So you don't want to adjust it too many times because you could potentially tear it. But what I'll do is I'll just peel this back up, and then I will take one corner, peel that corner back, and then lay that side down in nice and straight, keep peeling, and then just lay it down over the rest, tucking it in everywhere I can, getting it to stick down to the door card as much as possible in all those angles. And again, this is where that extra material comes in, because you can start to tuck it in and around. You've got your cup holders and your different parts on the other side of this that you can now tuck this material down and around it, and it's going to be vastly superior to the OEM. All right, so as you can tell, it's all stuck down. Went down pretty well. As mentioned before, there's a little bit of gap, but there's no reason why you can't close that gap. Now, one thing I wanted to point out here really quickly. So you've got this big void space, right? So when you cut that sheet, when you use the normal cover as a template, this is just kind of lays over this space where this foam wants to stick down. And obviously, we ended up with a gap. Or it's just going to be sit across. So this is not necessarily a bad thing. This is just a difference in design. And this is where your scrap material comes in. So just take any place where you've got a gap, take some scrap material, and go ahead and cut it to shape and fit it in. This is obviously where your window switches are going to go. So you want to make sure that you can still get to it, but your wiring is going to come through the outside now, is going to be on the outside of that foam. So you can take it very easily and just fit it in to place and cover any of those gaps. Same thing where if you've cut back a little too aggressively, like on this corner here, I was off by about an inch or so. You can just take any scrap material and we'll end up with some, and just easily fill in that space, okay? So I'm almost done here. I'm just going to use my little bit of scrap, fill in any place that I've got any gaps. I feel like my speaker setups are really good. My connection setups are really good. I just want to make sure to fill these couple of places. These lead two edges here and across here. I'll show you what that looks like when it's done, and then we're going to put on the speaker rings and we can rehang our door card. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the other portion of what we're going to be doing for the stage one now that the door card is completely ready to go, and it's about ready to be rehung back here on the door. Now, these are our sound rings. These come in long strips, and you can see they're very easily bendable. They're also very compressible. They'll compress down to practically paper thin. Now, every speaker is going to be different. And if you're watching this video on how to approach a different car, I can give some advice. Now, very frequently with BMWs, the speakers are flush mounted, so they're flat and level. They're set back a little bit, so you have an air gap between the speaker and the door card, which allows sound to go out into your door card. Now, in this case, they're on this angled mount, so they're tipped out a little bit. This also has this gasket where there's a ring on the door card that will press up against that gasket. So it does a fairly decent job for an OEM speaker to push that sound forward. But even then, you've got vents in the speakers here on the side. So you can put the sound rings either beside on the door itself or on the door card. In this case, I'm going to put it on the door, because if you can see, if I put it on the door card on the outside of that ring, it would press into the wiring harness, and that's going to make it sit a little funny. I'm going to want it underneath that. So I'm going to take my sound rings material, I'm going to layer it around in one nice loop around the outside. Just take it, peel it off, slowly stick it on all the way around until you get to the right length, cut it off and set it down. It really is that simple. It is such a simple, easy step to add, just to add a little bit more insulation to try to push as much sound forward out through your speakers than back into your doors. Okay, does that make sense? So go ahead and put your sound rings on, and then we're gonna put the door card back on. All right. So now we're ready to rehang our door card, and we're just going to go back in reverse of how it went on. Now, you're going to make sure that your door pin is lined up, you got your Bowden cable connected and all of this. But I usually will start with the wiring harness over on this side. And if you didn't cover them, you still have all of your little pin spots throughout the frame where they all go back in. Don't forget that your window switch has to come up through that hole. So I usually will do that one first, and then I will put its little plastic pin, that helps hold that cable in place. I usually will do that first, and I'll plug in all of the rest as we go through. But once your wiring harness is on, and let me point out the Bowden cable here really quickly. Now the Bowden cable, as you can see, has a hook on the back. So you're going to tip the front end in first and then snap it down into place. Always test your door pull before you put your door card back on to make sure that this is working. I've had that happen where it wasn't on quite straight and it wasn't working and I had to pull the door card again. Okay, so get all of your wiring harness plugged back in. Now let me just show here in summary really quick. You have your door pin in place. You're going to hold it up, get it all lined up really nicely, and then just very gently bang with your hand and it'll bang back onto those clips. Okay, and then it'll hang in place. Make sure that all of those plastic posts down around the outside are lined in, because if they're out of alignment, you'll break them as you smack them back in. But if they're lined up, you can just gently hit with your hand and hit it back into place. Okay, so get everything hung back up, get your door card back on. We'll take a look at what it looks like when it's done. Then we're going to move on to the back seat. All right, so almost done. As you can see, the door card is back on. It's all lined in and nice into place. Now, a couple of things here really quickly as a good example of what can happen. So when you look at the grip, if you'll notice, a couple of the clips stayed behind and a couple are still on the door card. Okay, so what you're going to want to do, you can do it either way. You can either take these off and put them back on the door pull cover, or you sometimes can even leave them into place, because if they were strong enough to hold on, then the little tab right here that's on the door pull cover will slide right back when you put it back into place, right? But don't forget to put your screws in first. So put in those T20s and put them down tight. Don't over crank them. They're metal into plastic, so don't go bananas on it. And then you have your window switch as well. It's just going to plug in one orientation and a little horseshoe collar locks down. And then this side is done. As always, make sure to test your door pull. It works great. And then let's move on to the back door. So we're going to go a little bit faster here on the back door because it's the same process, but I just wanted to show you for sure. And obviously on the inside it's a little bit different too, but it's almost identical. So if you want to pull the grip off, again, use a plastic trim tool to get underneath and gap this out, then work it out. You're going to have two screws, one at the top, one at the bottom right here. On the back doors, you only have one screw down here on this edge, and you can feel it. It's right there. Those are all T20s, so 1, 2, 3. T20s. You have your window switch here as well, which you're going to want to use your plastic trim tool underneath this, lift it and unplug it so the cable is out, and then work your plastic trim tool into the side, get some gap, pop this cover off. It really is that simple. So I'll show a little bit more of that process, but it's just a duplicate of what we've done so far, just a little bit different here on the back door. So go ahead and get started, get the cover off, get the screws out, switch out, and then we'll get this door card off. All right, so here's the back side of your back door. We're going to do the exact same process and use some of the same skills that you learned on the front door. There are the little staples holding this down, and you can see this isn't bad, but it's not great. This is why we're doing this, to make it better. So go ahead and lift this, pull all of the staples, so this will come off, and then lay out the material. Use this as your template, just like we did before. So you'll lay this pad out as a template. Now, as I talked to you before, if you don't have this, if this is either a different car or a different model, or maybe a model of BMW that doesn't have this liner, because this is a relatively new thing for BMW to put this liner in. So if you don't have it, you can see though where you would lay the material out. So imagine this isn't here. You know, you just see your speaker ring, you would see your electrical connection, you'd see your hook for your Bowden cable, you'd see the connection for the Bowden cable, you'd see all your posts. You just take the new Wavy foam material, lay the sheet out over the top of this, cut out a rough cut shape, and then start cutting it out. You'd be like, okay, so when I lay this out, the speaker's here, so I would cut a circle. Once I orient that circle, I would cut out for my Bowden cable. I would cut out for my electrical connection. And so it really is the same process, even if you don't have this. And it would not be all that hard to do. So we just have the advantage. The disadvantage is we have to take this back off. But the advantage is we can use it as at least a partial template as we lay it out. All right, so here's finished product here on the back door. like I said, you just kind of leverage the skills that you've learned on the very first door, and you're going to do this 2 more times, of course. I'm only going to show 2 doors because the process is exactly the same. But, you know, we laid out that padding, which I really think is primarily just temperature. I think it's insulation. It's not sound. It's not a sound barrier. We used it as a template to cut out our holes for our electrical runs and for our speakers and the rest. You oversize your template of the new material of the Wavy foam, and then lay it down and tuck it down. If you do end up in a place where you run out of material a little bit, just cut in scrap. Same thing here. So when this lays down into what is the back side of the armrest, this material will gap, so you can just take some of the scrap that you have and lay it in and cover. So really nice and simple. So I'm going to use the speaker rings again on the back door. I'll show you what that looks like done, because it's the same process. You're just going to lay it out, ring it around the speaker, but I'll show you what that looks like. Then we're going to hang this door card, and you're done. All right, so here we are back at the back door again. I've taken a little bit of my sound rings and I've put it around the outside. I put it underneath the speaker cable here, so it doesn't get pressed down or anything when the door goes back on. And again, that ring on the door card itself is going to press into the ring on the gasket. So this is going to do a good job of sealing the rest around the speaker. Okay, so at that point, your stage 1 is pretty much done. Now, obviously, if you haven't done the other sides yet, you're going to have to go over and duplicate on the other side. But it gets easier and easier and faster as you go, because those skills that you learn to cut the material out and lay it in just gets better as you go. So all you need to do again is rehang this side. So you're going to bring your door card back up. Make sure to hang your Bowden cable. And again, this end goes into the back of that lever, and then it snaps down into place. Always test first. Make sure that your door pin goes up through the door card itself. Press in this top leading edge and then work your way around, just like we talked about before. Double check all your buttons. Double check your door handle, your door pull, make sure all of that works, but pretty much good to go, and especially with one of the rear doors here that has the fewest number of cables. So I'll show you what it looks like when the door card's back on, but other than that, go ahead and start to wrap up. If you haven't done the other side yet, do those, but wrap up and put your tools away. All right, guys, so go ahead and wrap up and put your tools away, and you can tell this is not a hard project and only takes a little bit of time. Everything you need will be listed in the video description below, so make sure to check that out. And thank you to Soundskins for really making a fantastic series of products. And as I integrate their new products into my builds, and I change my recommendations for that stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and it really does make a difference. Once you start reducing that road noise in your car, once you start improving your sound system by cutting out all those extraneous noises and helping to push the sound forward into the cabin, you kind of don't want to go back. It makes a huge difference. So thank you to Soundskins, and thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it. Please make sure to click like and subscribe. It actually does make a real difference to my channel, and I would really appreciate it. I'll see you on my next project.